Hi everyone, welcome back. Michael Sandler here, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever felt jumbled, spinny, foggy, short on attention, brain power, memory, what was I talking about again? Or like your mind's just not working like it used to, then do we have the show for you. Today we'll be talking with cognitive behavioral therapist and brain fog expert, Dr. Mike Dow. He's also the co-host of TLC's Freaky Eaters and My 600-Pound Life Reunion, Logo's That Sex Show, ID's Strange Criminal, and VH1's Couple Therapy. He also appears regularly on The Dr. Oz Show, has been on The Rachael Ray Show, and has a fantastic, relatively new book, The Brain Fog Fix. Reclaim your focus, memory, and joy in just 3 weeks. And that's just what we'll talk about today, reclaiming your brain, how to gain focus, concentration, overcome anxiety and depression, sleep better, and even be a better mommy or daddy. Or maybe even have smarter kids. Plus, we'll look at the benefits of houseplants, rescuing animals, kicking yourself outdoors, the power of berries, and why we should all go a little crazy with curry. So, welcome to the show, Mike. Are you ready to shine?
I am ready, Michael. You hit all the best points, so I can't wait to shine and talk about all of them in detail.
Excellent, and a mighty woohoo! Woohoo! Awesome. So, before we dive right into things, you're clearly sharp of mind now, but it sounds like from the book you weren't always this way.
Yeah, that's right. So I experienced my own case of brain fog. And the best way I know how to describe brain fog is it's when you just don't feel like yourself. So we all know what it's like to feel at our peak, at our best. And we also know when we're just walking around in that fog. And for me, I was dealing with a lot of work stress when I was filming a show, writing my first book, going through a breakup. And I just felt like I was walking in a state of perpetual fog. And here's the thing, Michael. I think when we are going through difficult times in our lives, we actually sometimes do the things that actually fog our brain more as opposed to take care of our brain, right? So got a little co-host here, Rachael.
Oh, awesome. Wait, hold that up. And for anybody who's not able to see this, we have a small, white, 15 to 20 pound, unless he's been eating a bunch. What's his name?
Rocco. The best way to keep him quiet is to have him on my lap during interviews. Otherwise, he tries to get my attention.
Well, woohoo!
And we're going to talk all about dogs today and rescue animals and what that does in terms of blood sugar and oxytocin and all these great things for the brain. But it's really fascinating. Going back to my own brain fog episode, the times in our lives when we should be taking the best care of our brain tends to be the time in our lives where we actually self-medicate with all of these American factory farmed foods. We withdraw instead of connecting to our friends and the people that love us and who can actually make us feel better. So it's really interesting. I know what it's like to have brain fog, and I have a lot of natural, clinically proven and groundbreaking strategies to reverse that fog so people can feel like themselves again.
Awesome. And you've got me thinking of, we're a 7-day-a-week show. We're cranking a lot of hours of the day. It'd be real easy in the late night hours to say, and thankfully I don't ever do it, but to go for that junk food, to go for that Twinkies, that rocket fuel, that Red Bull, which may have a temporary benefit in theory, but just going to squish my brain into the mud.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Everybody knows that if you eat too much sugar, too much flour, you're probably going to gain weight. You're probably going to get diabetes one day. But we now know, and this is the groundbreaking science, that spiking your blood sugar with all that processed food, with all that sugar and flour, it actually fogs the brain and causes plaques, brain fog, later dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. And the actual physical appearance of those plaques resemble the plaques in the body for people that have other physical conditions. So
I think you even mentioned that plaque in the body, it also mimics the Alzheimer's in the brain, is it?
That's right. And it's fascinating because as Americans, we tend to spike our blood sugar all day long. So not only if you spike your blood sugar, is that going to affect you in the short term? So if you have a big plate of pasta or French fries for lunch, and I gave you some psych testing right after lunch, you would be a little foggy. So it affects you in the short term, but then over the long term, it can actually fog your brain with plaques that there are no cure for, right? Dementia, mild neurocognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, all of these diseases that are actually tripling over the next few decades. So it really is something that we actually have so much power over, and it's not an inevitable part of aging.
Fascinating. And it's got me thinking of the Thanksgiving dinner where you overeat and then you're kind of glazed over afterwards. And we're getting that all the time, almost every workday then.
We sure are. I call that the food coma. And I think we've all been there. And you just feel groggy. Your energy feels low. You feel bloated. You just don't want to move. You don't want to do all the things that you should be doing in your life to be productive and to have that passion or that joy. And isn't it interesting that most Americans, the standard American diet, pretty much everything about it tends to be wrong. So, but the good news is there's so many simple fixes we can make that I talk about in the book.
Beautiful. And I'm going to want to go into those in a quick second, but I'm curious as to what you think is going wrong here, where you had a statistic early in the book, 1 out of 4 women in their 40s and 50s is on antidepressants, that the number of college students on Adderall is sky high, and we're medicating, and then we're medicating on top of medicating, we're medicating on top of medicating on top of medicating.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, yeah, I have that little song in the book about the lady who swallowed a fly and then needed to swallow the something, right? Yeah. And that polypharmacy, needing one medication to chase the other medication. You know, as Americans, I think we too often reach for the quick fix. And listen, there are absolutely some people who need medication. But, you know, for example, a high omega-3 EPA has shown to be as effective in treating major depressive disorder as prescription antidepressants. And I don't think most people taking an antidepressant know that. I don't think they know that they have a choice. And I don't think most people, you know, what's really interesting, you know, my grandpa grew up on a farm in Ohio. Mm-hmm. And even if you're eating the same foods as you always have, the food itself has changed. So in my grandpa's generation, most farms were family farms. Mm-hmm. So that means that all of these animals are on a farm. They're just roaming around, eating whatever's on the ground, grasses, all these really great substances, because it's not just you are what you eat, you are what you ate, right? So whatever they're eating, you're eating. So now the vast majority of our animal products, milk, dairy, eggs, they're factory farmed. So what that does in the brain, family farming, organic, grass-fed, any sort of animal product, doesn't matter if it's beef or milk or chicken. Mm-hmm. Family farms, higher omega-3s, lower omega-6s. Factory farming, very, very high omega-6s, very, very low omega-3s.
And you want to get that in a ratio of like 1 to 1.
That's right. Or 2 to 1. But right now, the most Americans are eating about 25 times more pro-inflammatory omega-6s that fog the brain to every one omega-3 that has anti-inflammatory effects, that prevents dementia, that prevents depression, that can help improve mood. So we know that these invisible changes in our food supply are wreaking havoc on our brains.
So then let's go into, and I'm not sure if it's food or not, you tell me, what's the first and the number one thing, and you have a fantastic program in the book to help you really defog, like get out a squeegee for the brain. What's the number one thing we should do to begin this process?
I think eating an omega-3 superfood every single day is the best thing you can do. So that's what you do in the first week of the program in my book. And you combine that with natural cognitive behavioral therapy tools that I have every single day. So every single day you're going to look for a pitfall thought pattern, which is a clinically proven treatment for anxiety, depression as part of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so I have these 7 pitfall thought patterns, one for every day of the first week of the program. Mm-hmm. So looking at, for example, polarization. So polarization is looking at things through a black or white lens. So when we look at things through a black or white, it's I had a caller on my radio show just yesterday, and she had made amends with her father, right? Mm-hmm. So her father was abusive. She had made amends, and so she thought that she was moving from black to white, and now she should just be, oh, I'm done. I've forgiven him, and well, now everything should be great. And she didn't understand why she still had residual feelings after she apologized for him. So in this case, that was polarization. Mm-hmm. That was looking at it, if I don't accept his apology, that's black. But once I do, everything will be sunshine and rainbows, and it will be perfect, and all of my feelings will just go away, and I'll just feel completely happy all the time. We do that a lot in our lives. So whether it's that job, we think that is the one job for us, and we fail to see the gray area that lies between these two poles. When we can live in these shades of gray, we tend to see more opportunity. We're kinder to ourselves because we don't expect perfection. And then you pair that with an omega-3 superfood, and I have a list of the omega-3 superfoods in the book that are high in omega-3s, low in mercury. Yep. You eat one of those every day to feed your brain, and all of a sudden you start to feel better pretty quickly.
Awesome, and it's got me thinking of both brain elasticity and brain. Would it be plasticity and elasticity? You're more flexible by living in the gray zone. Your brain's got to work more, and so it's off balance a little bit, which makes it get stronger.
Yeah, that's right. So neuroplasticity is such a buzzword, and we now know, just a generation ago, scientists thought the brain was done growing at 25, and now we know that's not true. There are ways that you can grow and shape your brain every single day, in every day, whether you're 25 or 85.
So let's go from there. Let's look a little bit at some more of the foods, and then I want to talk about some of the other fun stuff. I don't know if fun's the right word. Technology, sleeping, mood. There's so many other things that let's cover a little bit of each. Food. Yeah. What are some of the other top things that we absolutely need to do for our brain?
Moving away, here's one very simple switch that will actually taste a lot better. So we eat, if you go into your pantry or your kitchen and you look at the back of your salad dressing, your mayonnaise, the oils you cook with, almost every processed food, even, this makes me really angry when food companies do this. Even some spaghetti sauces that say made with olive oil on the front, if you turn that around and you look at the back, soybean oil. Soybean oil is one of the main culprits in that high omega-6 state that most Americans are in. The opposite of that, the healthy olive oil. We know that people who use olive oil for both cooking and for their salad dressings and, cooking, sauteing your spinach at night. I just had some organic eggs this morning. I sprayed my pan with light olive oil, not extra virgin, because for dressings, you want to use extra virgin. For cooking, you want to look for light olive oil because
light's more stable.
Virgin, yeah, that's right. More stable at high temperatures. And we know from long-term studies that people who used olive oil for both cooking and dressing had better cognitive function as they aged. But what are most Americans eating every single day, every single meal? Soybean oil. It's everywhere. And by the way, in terms of taste, replace olive oil, real olive oil, for all that soybean oil. It tastes so much better. It's delicious as well. So that's an easy swap everyone can make.
Awesome. And then a surprising one to me was, it's not surprising that it's not good for you, but the effect on the brain is artificial sweeteners.
Yeah. So remember, our gut is our second brain. The vast majority of our serotonin, that main feel-good neurotransmitter that creates a state of happiness and also peace, right? So it makes you happy, but it also relieves anxiety. Yep. It's not made up here. It's made down here in your belly. So we know that eating artificial sweeteners kills the good bacteria in your gut. Now, the opposite of that, we also know that people who eat probiotics in things like organic Greek yogurt or kimchi or tempeh, which is my favorite source of vegetarian protein, better than tofu because it's fermented, so it has these probiotics, right? We know that people who eat probiotics have less anxiety and depression. So they have the good gut flora, but people who are consuming artificial sweeteners, they're killing the good bacteria. And when you kill the good bacteria, your belly has trouble making that feel-good serotonin. So a lot of these yogurts, it's great that you're eating a yogurt with probiotics, but what's it sweetened with? If it's sweetened with an artificial sweetener, you're sort of negating the good stuff, right? So there are a couple great. The kind I like is a Greek yogurt, either organic or now there are a couple brands that use only stevia. Stevia is a great natural sweetener. It doesn't kill the good bacteria like the other harmful stuff will.
Beautiful. Can you tell us what a blood sugar swap is, or some ways that we can work to protect our blood sugar levels?
Yeah, so we know that even having a moderately above average blood sugar level is going to affect your cognitive performance. So this is not about going all or nothing military style Atkins. Listen, we need some carbs. In fact, there are some great carbs for the brain, most notably the best fruit for your brain, which is berries. But it's about finding ways to reduce your blood sugar spikes every day. So, for example, when I'm on the road, if you're driving on the freeway and there's a bunch of fast food outlets, my favorite tends to be Subway. And at Subway, here's a simple trick. Mm-hmm. You just ask them to shell the bread out. So they actually take their hands and they pull some of that bread out, and so you're getting about 50% less carbs. So if you are going to eat some carbs, at least reduce the number of carbs you eat. Make a mushroom on a portobello mushroom pizza. Instead of having pita and hummus, have baby carrots or tomatoes with hummus. There are these simple swaps and switches that we can make every day because, by the way, most Americans eat way too many carbs, and carbs also tend to show up in everything. So a lot of these store-bought salad dressings, not only do they have soybean oil, mm-hmm. but they have sugar. A salad dressing should have two ingredients: vinegar and olive oil, right? That is a salad dressing.
Right.
And you can mix it up. You can make different varieties with different kinds of vinegar. You can add garlic. You could add a fresh squeeze of fruit to make different varieties. But we're eating sugar all day long, and it's actually all of these American choices. We now know that they are actually shrinking our brain.
Wow. So, okay. Well, the question was going to be is what sugar does to the brain. Shrinking, that doesn't sound good.
No, we know that, listen, after the age of 40, the hippocampus starts to shrink anyways. But mm-hmm. the standard American diet with all these factory farm foods, with all of these blood sugar spikes, we now know that this is just research that's come out in the past couple of years, that it actually shrinks your brain. And the program that I recommend in the Brain Fog Fix, which has been study after study, even studies that are just coming out this year in 2016, we know, I talk about the modified Mediterranean diet. If you eat a modified Mediterranean diet, you are going to help grow and protect your brain. We know that people who follow this program, so I say modified because this is not the American Italian diet. This is not pizza and pasta. We're talking about healthy grilled fish. We're talking about nuts. We're talking about berries. We're talking about, and two good news, two of the best health foods for your brain, mm-hmm. in moderation, of course, coffee and red wine. We know that people who have, let's say, 3 cups of coffee a day and 1 glass of red wine per day, you are much likely to be diagnosed with dementia. It reduces inflammation, and they'll both have antioxidants. So we know that this modified Mediterranean diet is really neuroprotective.
You're also talking about, I liked one of the swaps you had, which is taking out the sugar and putting in cinnamon in your coffee or tea.
Yeah, absolutely. Another, it's a great source of antioxidants. Cinnamon may help to lessen blood sugar spikes. By the way, red wine, vinegar also help to lessen those blood sugar spikes. And the other thing you can do is you can eat that healthy salad that's full of fiber mm-hmm. before you do have one slice of pizza, because all of that fiber can help to modify and lessen the impact of that blood sugar spike.
Beautiful. Where do we get folate? Why is that important?
So I talk about, and I think this is really groundbreaking, and this really helps people to understand why in a large-scale study, the people who ate 7, not 4, not 5, but 7 servings of vegetables and fruits every single day were happier, less frequently depressed, their cognitive function will likely improve. And we know that, listen, we have all of these what are called cofactors. Mm-hmm. So we have these 2 main feel-good hormones, these neurotransmitters, serotonin and dopamine. Now, your brain takes these amino acids that you probably already eat in your diet. So, for example, the tryptophan from that turkey, and then your body turns that into 5-HTP, which becomes serotonin. Mm-hmm. And in terms of dopamine, the tyrosine that you're having in those, or that I had in my organic eggs this morning, becomes L-DOPA, which then becomes dopamine. But guess what? Your body needs all of these cofactors, right? So folate is one of the most important cofactors. Now, a cofactor is a vitamin or mineral that your body needs to make that conversion from amino acid to those neurotransmitters. So folate is a B vitamin. So folate and all of the other B vitamins, vitamin C, iron, you got to get all of these. And guess what? If you eat 7 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, you're probably going to get them all.
Love it. Although B12 you talk about, and I think if you're vegan or vegetarian, you'd recommend getting some sort of a supplement there.
Yeah, supplements can be great for people, and the other supplement that I recommend for vegetarians, this question always comes up.
Yep.
If you're eating I have a lot of the omega-3 superfoods, and most of them are fish, and fish are the most potent source. And a lot of people are going to be surprised when they read that list that there are actually a lot of farm-raised fish that are okay to eat. But it just depends on the species, right? So if you're eating salmon, you do not want farm-raised. But for example, rainbow trout, farm-raised, high in omega-3s and low in mercury, but only that variety of fish, right? But some of those vegetarian superfoods, like, for example, walnuts. So that is not EPA or DHA. So fish have EPA, your brain's main feel-good omega-3, and also DHA, which is your brain's think-better omega-3. It helps to preserve cognitive function. Now, vegetarian sources have ALA, which your body then has to convert into those two other omega-3s, EPA and DHA, but it doesn't do a very good job of converting ALA into DHA in particular. So another supplement that vegetarians can opt for is algae. Algae is a way to get that DHA, and you can probably get enough EPA from eating ALAs and flax seeds and walnuts because your body will convert that ALA to mostly EPA.
A lot of letters, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's a confusing formula, but if you get that formula right, we know that people who eat fish regularly, you're much less likely to be depressed. You're much less likely to be diagnosed with dementia. So just these simple swaps and switches, understanding this magic formula, because it really is a magic formula. I comb through all of the best studies from around the world to see, for example, how many cups of coffee. If you want to reduce your risk of dementia by over 50%, it's that magic number, 3 cups of coffee. You don't want to go over too much because then other large-scale studies show that people who are drinking 5, 6, 7 can increase their risk of death. But, 3 cups will not increase your risk of death and also reduce your risk of dementia. So it really is this complicated formula of how much of what should I be eating and drinking every single day.
A minute ago, you used the word magic, and that brings me to another vitamin, which I'm putting in quotes because to me it's more of a hormone than a vitamin, vitamin D.
Yeah, so vitamin D, wild salmon, the best source of vitamin D. Obviously, you can get it through sun exposure, but listen, so many Americans are deficient in all of these hormones, and then what happens when we're deficient in something, we don't feel our best. Then we all of a sudden are reaching to or immediately for a pharmaceutical, which that's not the best choice. Again, there are some people who need medication, but is it really that you need that medication, or are you just deficient in something that you could be getting naturally first?
Yeah. So before we jump into meds, we'll jump there in one question. I mentioned at the beginning of the show the benefits of curry.
Curry is one of the if there is one thing that you do differently, if you want to keep eating your junk food every single day, and there's nothing I can say to make you do otherwise, but there's one thing that you could do to prevent dementia, it is probably to eat turmeric, which is the spice that gives curry its yellow flavor every single day. But here's the trick. So I have a wellness shot in my book. Yep. So here's the recipe. A half teaspoon of turmeric, a half teaspoon of black pepper, and you just put that in an ounce or 2 of water. And this is why. First of all, we know that black pepper helps curry, turmeric, and the active ingredients in it to be bioavailable. So if you have it without the pepper, your body just digests it, and it doesn't make its way into your body and your brain. But with the black pepper, your body will actually digest it, and then it becomes neuroprotective. We know that in rural India, they have over 90% less dementia and Alzheimer's disease compared to people in America, comparing 60 plus 60-year-old, 60 and over Indians versus 60 and over Americans. And we know that it's because they consume curry every single day. Brain scans have shown and have confirmed that magical combination seems to block the accumulation of those plaques that cause brain fog, dementia, Alzheimer's disease. And by the way, a half teaspoon is about how much you'd eat if you had curry lunch and dinner. Now, I like curry. I do not want to eat curry lunch and dinner every single day. So I have this really simple wellness shot. And what I do, instead of making it every single day, I keep it in a glass bottle in my fridge. I just make 2 weeks worth at a time. I give it a little shake in the glass bottle. I open it, I take a swig, and I've got my neuroprotective turmeric in my brain every single day.
I'm a huge pepper fan, every type of pepper, and I've got to think that little shot is also a poof. I'm awake as soon as you take that.
It wakes you up, and you can, if you're really adventurous, you can do black pepper and cayenne pepper together. Then you're really going to wake up.
So, and that's one of my favorite foods is cayenne pepper. Food has become, in a sense, a turmeric and a cayenne pepper delivery system.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
So let's go from there. Then you alluded to it. You were jumping right in and medication. So we're taking meds that should be helping us, but why is it creating more problems?
It's so interesting. So I talk about a couple of the main classes that are fogging so many American brains. Mm-hmm. SSRIs, so that's the very popular class of antidepressants that are also used to treat anxiety. So Prozac, Paxil, Lexapro, Celexa, and then also sleeping pills, Ambien. So even these large these governing bodies of mainstream medicine are now realizing, oh shoot, we should not have been prescribing these. But guess what? The ship has sailed. In terms of Ambien, they're realizing that, especially for women, they had to cut way back. They're finding that even if you take it as prescribed, 8 hours later, you could have enough of that medication in your bloodstream to impair driving. So all of a sudden, they're realizing, wow, that probably wasn't a great idea. Mm-hmm. Rebound insomnia. So insomnia tends to be worse after so again, it's putting a Band-Aid, but then creating.
And I want to pause you for a brief second. So if for everybody to hear that Ambien can create as much of a challenge as you're trying to fix.
Absolutely. And the same is true for Xanax. So I have the history of Xanax in my book, and this is really interesting. So to get Xanax became a huge hit because it got approval to be marketed as the first medication to treat panic attacks. So it was the first benzodiazepine to get approval to treat panic attacks. Well, they took out all of these spreads and all of the medical publications, and Xanax became widely prescribed for people with panic attacks. And they published the data, but what they didn't publish was, so of course they have these two groups, the control and the people taking Xanax, and they showed, look, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 8, look at how much better their panic attacks were. Oh my gosh, it's a miracle pill. What they didn't publish, of course, was what happened when that group went off the Xanax and their panic attacks got even worse than when they started, right? So, of course, they didn't publish that. So of course, all of these from around the world, psychiatrists and psychologists wrote all of these letters and said, but, again, that ship had sailed. And once you get all of these people on these medications, they actually become dependent on them. So, again, it's not that I'm saying that there aren't people who absolutely need medication, but are you really one of them, or can you benefit from natural strategies that have been, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, shown to be more effective in the long run than Ambien for sleeping problems and insomnia. So have you tried that first, I think is that magic question.
And I'm one person. I wrote a book on, it was a niche bestseller a few years back on attention deficit disorder. And I was somebody who used meds both as a kid and in grad school. And then found I was a lot more successful at everything I did by pulling myself off the meds and working with meditation and going after my thoughts, chasing them, hunting them down to rewire the mind, and then throwing different food on top of that, plus vitamin N, if we want to call it that, nature time, to rewire.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? These studies in terms of what happens to creativity when you spend just a little time in nature. And again, this American lifestyle of being in cubicles that are fluorescent lit with no windows, which wreaks havoc on the brain as well in terms of throwing off our circadian rhythms. So it really is. It's almost as if we are deliberately undermining our brain chemistry and creating fogginess.
So we'll go from there. We'll about 2 steps from now. Let's go into artificial light and stuff. Let's start. I'll kind of follow a little bit of the flow of your book. I want to talk about toxins and taking on toxins, and starting with our water. Yeah.
So there are so many toxins out there, and if you look at all of the research that has come out, toxins have been linked to almost every mental illness, ADHD, depression, anxiety, dementia. And we need to make sure, and I think a lot of the stuff that's been happening lately in our country, and this water in, was it Michigan or Chicago? I'm forgetting where they're finding that the water is just, it's not clean.
I think it was Michigan.
Michigan, yeah, I think you're right. So there are these very simple fixes. We using a carbon filter, ways to keep our water clean. Because listen, water is a very good idea, and also not. If you have one of these water bottles, making sure you don't. I have a friend who keeps these in his car, and this is Los Angeles.
Oh no!
And the way that they leach chemicals when exposed to heat. So it's just a matter of how do you keep your water clean, because it's something that we obviously need every single day and all day long. Which is why I'm going to take a swig.
You talk about a lot of different toxins that you take on in your chapter. We don't have time, obviously, to go over all of them. Which is most important out of this bunch? I don't know. Non-stick cookware, stagnant indoor air, cleaning products.
Which one? I think all of them. But here's the magic trick, and I think this is really surprising to people.
Yeah.
The more body fat you are carrying on your body, the more toxins you carry around with you every single day. So we know that a lot of the toxins that there's nothing you can do about, so a lot of these toxins that are in couch cushions and mattresses, you've already been exposed to them. So you cannot, unless you've lived your life in a bubble, you've already been exposed to these toxins. But we know that the more body fat you carry, that these toxins accumulate and are stored and don't really leave body fat. So yes, you can make some simple adjustments. So for example, if you do insist on using nonstick cookware, studies show that you should use them at low or medium but not high heat. And if there's any scratches on that nonstick cookware, you want to throw that away. Heavier nonstick cookware tends to be better than cheaper, lighter ones. So you want to go for something that's really heavy, use low or medium heat. But for everybody in general, it doesn't matter. So many toxins are stored in body fat. So the more you can reduce those blood sugar spikes by reducing your carbs, and then you lose some body fat and you pair that with exercise, you get rid of that body fat, you're actually getting rid of toxins that fog the brain.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
And then you have a section in the book on houseplants, cleaning the air. I love that.
Yeah, isn't it great that there are natural ways, and I have a list of plants. A lot of, for example, ivy tends to be one of the best for cleaning the air. So there are actually, again, looking at, and it is going back to this magic formula. Just like there are certain fish you can eat wild, certain fish you can have farm raised, and you should get that omega-3 superfood list in my book. Take a picture of it, take it with you to the grocery store or the restaurant. Same thing when you go shopping for a houseplant. Get that list of the houseplants that have been clinically proven to clean the air, taking out all those toxins, releasing that oxygen to really help you to feel your best.
Beautiful. I spend a lot of time for this show on the computer, much more than I desire. And I've been finding a lot lately that I start to feel off. Maybe it's a little spinny. Maybe it's not quite right. I immediately tend to kick myself outdoors. I find that calms the systems down very quickly. What are electronics doing to the brain, and why do we not want to come home at night and flip on the tube?
Yeah, so this is really interesting in terms of circadian rhythms, and probably why so many people have insomnia. So out of all of the types of light, blue light is the one that most affects your circadian rhythms. And if you think about that, it makes sense. So during the day, if you go out into the real world and into nature, and it's a beautiful day, that you just think about it. It's like that blue sky, right? So that blue light tends to be the kind that tells your pineal gland in your brain it's daytime. Shut down the melatonin. It's time to be awake. It's time to get out of bed. But all electronics, so iPhones, computers, tablets, televisions, they all emit mostly blue light. Also, all of the low energy lights, so compact fluorescent bulbs and also LED lighting, while they use less electricity, they also have more blue light than those standard incandescent bulbs. So I'm going to talk about that in a second and what you can do about that. So what happens is, especially if you're exposed to those that blue light of electronics or the LEDs. More and more places, stores, offices, they're using all to save money. And obviously there's something about this that is great for the environment. They're replacing all the incandescents with fluorescents and LEDs, but again, they have more blue light. So that is going to actually keep you up at night, especially if you're exposing your eyes to that blue light late at night. Just recently, Apple announced that they are going to, it's not out yet, but they're going to be developing a night mode. So if you do have to check your iPhone at night, you can put it on night mode and it'll actually change the frequency and the spectrum to take the blue light out. But in the meantime, here's what you can do. You can put it on the dimmest setting. Now, I do have, right here in my kitchen, I do have LED lighting, but here's the trick. I don't turn that on at night. In my bedroom, I only use incandescent bulbs, and I put them on a dimmer. So again, if you have a dimmer, you're using less electricity. You're still being environmentally friendly, and you just want to keep your bedroom very dim, and you want to avoid LED or fluorescent lighting unless you are using one of the special bulbs. There's one by a brand called Definity Digital. GE is launching a new brand where you can get these LED lights that still save money. But for example, there's this light bulb called the Good Night bulb. So it's a low wattage LED bulb, but it takes the blue light out, so you can use that in your bedroom as well.
Fantastic. And we just tripped across, and then we got them in for ourselves. Actually, my wife has it so far. We'll be getting me one. It's a SamQ computer monitor, which actually has 3 different blue light settings. So you can choose the amount of blue light depending on how much resolution you want. And so if you're on that thing and it's after dark, and here after dark, I'm neurotic about trying to get things shut off quickly because I know get to bed early with natural lighting and I wake early and more refreshed. But the SamQ, at least we can put it to a low blue light mode, which is not perfect. Perfect is unplug it, but it's better. Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other hack you can use is if you are really having sleeping problems, orange sunglasses will also filter out that blue light. So if you're somebody who's exposed to light all day long and you're having trouble sleeping, if you get orange tinted lenses and wear them at night as you're driving home, that'll help to filter out the blue light and it'll make you sleepy as well.
Any other tips for sleeping? Because to me, that's one of the biggest contributors to a mush brain is not getting enough sleep or quality sleep.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the other thing we need to know about sleep. Even if you are one of those guys, I think guys tend to brag more about this than women, although mommy brain too. So maybe it is both men and women. Even if you're one of those people who brags and says, oh, I don't need a lot of sleep, I can get by on 4 or 6 hours. We know that 8 hours really is optimal, and I'll tell you why. When we sleep, our neurons actually expand, and it's sort of like our brain's wash cycle. And we know that when our neurons can expand, it's the wash cycle. So all that gunk that is between the neurons gets washed out. When that process isn't done very well because you're only sleeping 4 hours and your brain doesn't have that chance for your neurons to expand to go through that wash cycle, those plaques start to accumulate. So we know that sleeping 8 hours is one of the best things you can do. And one of the other hacks or tricks is to make sure when you go to sleep, keep that bedroom nice and cold. So room temperature, room temperature is about, let's say 70 degrees when you're awake, but room temperature, your bedroom temperature for sleeping should be closer to 67, because we know when we study the body and as it's transitioning into different phases of sleep, we know that the body temperature will drop, and that's how it prepares itself for sleep. So we know that you can help facilitate that process naturally by dropping your body temperature, by keeping your room cool. The only thing you don't want to have cold is your feet. So sometimes if that's a little too cold for you, you can wear socks to bed, but keeping that room around 67 degrees. That
makes sense. And this time of year, if you're in a colder climate, crack the window open a little bit. Get just a tiny bit of fresh air in there. It feels different, invigorating. And you don't need to freeze, but it just feels great.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So going from there and talking about feel great, I think there's an important one we should at least touch on briefly, which is spiritual starvation or meditation.
Yeah, so listen, we know that mindfulness meditation, for example, you were talking about it in terms of ADHD. At UCLA, where I studied mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, they're using mindfulness meditation to treat ADHD. We know that mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is very effective in treating depression, anxiety. So so many Americans, looking at the statistics, more and more people are abandoning spiritual practice. So we know that chanting, prayer, meditation, even counting rosary beads, all of these meditative practices have a place. They do something great in the human brain. They promote a state of peace, connectivity. We know that in brain scans, it only takes about 12 minutes of meditation before you start to see a positive effect. We know that a Kundalini yoga meditation can help reverse memory loss in older people experiencing memory loss. We know that mindfulness meditation reduces anxiety, depression, can help with ADHD. And as less and less Americans are going to a place of worship, they're also just becoming completely secular. And, it's like if one religion didn't fit for them, for example, let's say you grew up Southern Baptist and you don't identify with the Southern Baptist Church, you then just swear off all religion and with that all spirituality altogether and just become this American who is obsessed with the Kardashians and credit cards all day, right? So we don't want that extreme. And listen, I'm not telling you to believe in any one religion, but I am telling you that it's absolutely essential to find a spiritual practice. It can be religious, it can be secular, and it can be mindfulness meditation. A lot of the underpinnings are from the Buddhist religion, but mindfulness meditation itself, even if you don't have any religious belief and you're just using it as a secular practice, it still has the same benefits in the brain. So I think so many Americans, we need to figure out what is that practice that will take care of my brain. Because, by the way, meditation and prayer, it stimulates the most advanced part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that separates us from animals. So it explains why human beings, we need spiritual practice, but little Rocco does not need to spend his day meditating. But by the way, Rocco is my little Buddha because he's always so present, right? So it doesn't matter what we're doing. He is there. When we're walking, he is paying attention to that grass, to what's in front of him. He is not checking his phone while he's walking. Human beings, that's what we do. We multitask. We fog the brain by not giving things our full attention.
So that's a perfect segue. Why do we all need a rescue animal?
A couple things. Well, first of all, the best is the unconditional love. So we know that cuddling, it doesn't matter if you're cuddling with your significant other or with an animal, you're releasing oxytocin, which is a natural feel-good hormone. It's the cuddling chemical. It's the connection chemical in the brain. And also, even if you're somebody like me who makes exercise and pretty, I love a great yoga class. I love a great boot camp. But even if you've already done that boot camp at 8 a.m. and then if you've thought to yourself, well, I burned 700 calories in that morning class, I'm sort of done for the day. That's not true. We know that, for example, if you just walk for 6 minutes an hour, just moving your body for 6 minutes an hour, it will reduce blood sugar spikes by 20%. So we know that you actually want to be moving all day long. So if you're in an office and you have 4 hours of meetings and some of them are phone meetings, just put on an earpiece and pace around for at least 6 minutes an hour. If you're watching television, at least get up and move around and go use the restroom during commercials or something. Just move your body a little bit. And if you have a rescue animal, let me tell you, I walk all day long. He loves
Rocco demands it.
Rocco demands those walks. I'm probably in addition to my daily workout, I probably am walking him for over an hour a day. And it's a non-negotiable. There's not a day that goes by. It doesn't matter how sick I feel, if I'm sick, how tired. Those walks they become non-negotiable.
Awesome. Can you tell us real briefly about a mommy brain and what we can do to help mommies out there?
Yeah, so I have two specialty chapters in the Brain Fog Fix. One is called Mommy Brain, and the other is Senior Moments. We know that these two populations have a specialized condition. So in Mommy Brain, what's happening? Again, going back to those three kinds of omega-3s, DHA, your brain's think better omega-3, also is like the Play-Doh of your brain. Yep. So it's what your brain uses to form new neural connections, and it's why mothers need so much DHA because of that fetus that's needing that Play-Doh to build the new brain, right? So mothers give a lot of their omega-3s away, and the female brain, when it becomes a mom, that woman becomes a mom, mommy brain is your brain is prioritizing things a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. So some areas become less sharp. You will actually perform more slowly on some tests. But guess what? Other parts of your brain actually become better. So you're more able to sense danger. Anything that is going to help you to bond to your infant and keep your infant safe, that is going to be strengthened. If you're an attorney and you used to be really good at vocabulary and detail oriented, that may suffer a little bit. And of course, that's a combination of hormones, lack of sleep, what happens to the body. But this is what we know. Omega-3s are just magical for mommy brain. So if you have those omega-3 superfoods, and especially the seafood that has a magical combination, most seafood has about equal 50-50 EPA and DHA. So if you make seafood a priority from that omega-3 superfood list, mm-hmm. It's going to do wonders on reducing mommy brain.
Beautiful. And then for seniors, for our parents or grandparents out there, what do we want to get them to do?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. I have the most effective memory game, in the brain fog fix, and it's called the NBAC. Mm-hmm. So the NBAC, if you've ever played that childhood game Concentration, that's a version of the NBAC. So if you don't have my book and you want to play right now, you can actually play. If you have a deck of cards, you can play a version of the NBAC just by looking for pairs, like you used to do when you played Concentration when you were a kid. And then for senior moments, we know that the best foods are turmeric, yep. berries, yep. especially all berries, but blueberries in particular, can halt cognitive decline by about 2.5 years on average if you're eating blueberries all the time. And then fish. So again, this really, and you mentioned at the beginning of our interview, children. What's good for the developing brain is good for the young adult brain, which is good for the mommy brain, which is good for the old brain. So it really is. It's not like once you're older, you should start eating blueberries. You should be eating blueberries. I should be eating blueberries.
I am a wild blueberry-aholic.
Good. We love that. And the other thing is again, this magic formula. Always check out the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. Mm-hmm. So blueberries, one of the very best foods in your brain, but also it tends to be one of the most polluted. So blueberries tend to be one of the fruits that you want to make sure you're buying organic. If you can't afford to buy every fruit organic, blueberries are ones that you want to make sure you're getting organic.
That makes sense. So then toward the end, and then we'll do a brief meditation at the end, we always like to ask our guests a couple quick wrap-up questions. First one of which is, what brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Yeah. I was just in Seattle, and I got to speak at the Hay House I Can Do It conference, and people came. I talked about my book, The Brain Fog Fix, and I had hundreds of people there listening. And when you get feedback and you can actually see people's faces, and you realize that they took a little nugget of your information and they're actually going to apply it to their lives, and I can kind of, I actually, there's this woman on the plane. She was sitting a row behind me, and she said, "I was in your talk yesterday."
Oh, sweet.
And she said, "It really affected me. I'm going to start doing that." And when you start to actually, you spend a year writing a book here by yourself at this dining table, or I like to move around and write it in different places so I don't get bored and to keep myself on track. But when you actually see somebody who is taking that information, and you know that if they adopt 3 strategies, that could be the difference between them being diagnosed with dementia in 15 years or not, and you know that it's because the information that you've given them in this form of a book, but you can actually see them. That's such a gift to me.
Very, very cool. So on that note, a perfect segue. Where can people go to find out more and to find your book?
Yeah, so the Brain Fog Fix is available on Amazon. It's in stock at most Barnes & Nobles. But you can also go to my Facebook page, Facebook/Dr. Mike Dow, or my website, drmikedow.com. That's DrMikeEDOW.
Fantastic. And if you're driving down the road and you didn't catch that, no worries. Go over to inspirenationshow.com. We'll have all the links. We'll get you over to Mike. We'll get you over to his book as well. So before we fully wrap things up here and jump into that meditation, any last words of wisdom or tips you want to share with people?
I really just want to leave people with the message that every single day you have choices that you are making that profoundly impact your brain one way or the other. And I really believe that you are either fogging or defogging your brain every single day. And it's not these big, it's not the things that come in orange plastic bottles that are going to affect your life the most. It's the choices that you make every single day that impact your life and the health of not only your body, but also your brain.
Fantastic. So then we'll wrap it up at the end, but I'm so excited. What do you have for a meditation or to help us work a little bit on putting the squeegee to our brains?
Yeah, so this is called the thought stream meditation. So I want you to just close your eyes wherever you may be. All right. This is one of the best meditations for reducing anxiety and just finding that sense of calm or peace when you feel frantic or overwhelmed. So as you close your eyes here, I want you to imagine that you are sitting under a tree. And in sitting under this tree, you can feel maybe that nice summer air on your cheek, and you can feel the blades of grass under your sit bones and under your right pinky toe. And you're coming into this moment where your life is unfolding. The right here. And the right now. And as you see yourself sitting under this tree, I also want you to see a small stream in front of you. And you can see every drop of water as you hear it, and as you see every crest as a little molecule of water bubbles up over a stone. And this stream that you see in front of you is actually your mind. So along with those molecules of water bubbling up, I want you to see every thought and every feeling that you are having at this present moment. And I want you to, instead of seeing or feeling it as a part of yourself, I want you to externalize it a bit as we put it into this stream. And this is great for two reasons. First of all, if you notice what you are thinking or feeling in this moment and you are paying attention to it, well, then congratulate yourself, because this is actually meditation. So for those of us who think, oh, I need to clear my mind to be able to meditate, actually, all you need to do is pay attention to the present moment. And our thoughts and feelings are parts of the present moment. And just feel as you see your thoughts and feelings bubbling up in this stream, the difference between mindlessly allowing those thoughts or feelings to just do as they will within us, and actually paying attention to them. Because the second thing that this will do, when you have just, even if you see 2 feet of distance between the part of you that is you and the part of you that thinks and feels, you will actually feel a sense of relief, because now you don't have to be so controlled by your thoughts. I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. But I can watch them and greet whatever you find here in this thought stream with a simple, I see that bubble. And no matter if your stream is fast or slow, if you find a joyous thought or an anxious worry, maybe just greeting them all with the same non-judgment, awareness, and just allowing however you find your river at this moment to be your river. moment by moment, thought by thought, breath by breath. And while this is a meditation practice, in the final few moments of this meditation, I want you to just ask yourself, how could I keep an element of this practice in my daily waking life so that I could, especially on the days when feelings are negative or anxious or sad, I could notice them, but also realize that I am separate from my thoughts, that I am greater than my thoughts and my feelings and the mental chatter that can take us away or torment us at times. And just feeling the freedom in this idea. In this, the only moment where your precious and beautiful life is unfolding. Right here. And right now. As you open your eyes, infused with a sense of mindfulness. It's one of my favorite practices.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I love it. I feel at peace. And wow.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Very good. And for everyone listening out there, Brain Fog Fix, so many great tools in it. And I think when you get into it, you realize, and I recommend everybody to get this, there are so many ways that, like you're saying, we can either defog or fog, and so many ways that we are fogging without even realizing it.
Yeah, that's right. I think a lot of people will be surprised, whether it's the kind of cookware you're using, the kinds of oils, the kinds of factory farm versus organic, how many minutes per day you allow for spiritual practice or nature, with the kinds of light bulbs you're using. I think when you put it all together, people are left with this idea of, oh, that's why I've been feeling this way. Or, oh, wow, if I made these changes, I could probably feel 20, 30, 50% better naturally. So I think that's the other great news.
Awesome. And a last little thing I'll add to that is anytime that you put into your practice or put in getting out into nature, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, pays off like double-fold as far as the productivity, the brain power, because we're never productive 12 hours or something out of a day.
Yeah, and we know from research that if you are somebody who is just trying to charge through, you will actually be more creative by taking a break in nature, coming back to a task. So that's great news. So you don't have to feel guilty, right? Because you're actually going to be better when you come back after you take that break.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Mike, for being on the show. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, try the Brain Fog Fix, and, defog that brain, and shine bright. Woohoo!
Woo! Thanks, Michael.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!